It's not every day that someone becomes a cultural phenomenon for reasons that are both unexpected and, well, controversial. Sarah Palin, once a household name in politics, has been at the center of many debates. But today, we're not talking about her policies or speeches. Instead, we're focusing on something completely different: how a set of photos somehow managed to stir up conversations about global warming and climate change. It sounds strange, but once you hear the story, it might start to make sense. Back in the late 2000s, Sarah Palin became one of the most talked about figures in American politics. She was a fresh face, the first woman to run on the Republican ticket for vice president, and her every move seemed to grab headlines. But outside of the political world, something else happened that nobody really expected. A photo shoot she did in Alaska became the stuff of internet legend. The images showed Palin in her signature red jacket, standing tall against the breathtaking Alaskan wilderness, and holding a rifle. It was a strong visual statement, bold, rugged, and unapologetically tied to her identity. For some, these images represented strength and independence. For others, they became symbols of a larger, unintended conversation. Here's where things took a turn. Those pictures became more than just campaign material or promotional shots. They began to circulate online, often paired with memes and captions that sparked debates about climate change. Some internet users argued that the photos represented a mindset that ignored the realities of a warming planet. After all, Alaska has been ground zero for visible climate change's melting glaciers, shifting wildlife patterns, and rising temperatures. So when those images spread, they became a lightning rod for criticism about attitudes toward environmental issues. But the story doesn't stop there. What makes this even more interesting is how these photos became a flashpoint for discussions that went far beyond Palin herself. Critics saw them as a symbol of a certain lifestyle, one that some felt dismissed the urgency of climate change. Supporters, on the other hand, viewed the backlash as unfair, arguing that personal choices like hunting or outdoor activities weren't the root cause of environmental problems. Regardless of where you stand on the issue, it's fascinating how a single set of photos could create such a stir. Now, let's talk about the ripple effect. The memes and debates didn't just stay online. They spilled into real-world conversations. Late-night talk shows, social media threads, and even environmental campaigns used those pictures as a talking point. And while Palin herself may not have intended to kickstart a debate about global warming, the images became a cultural shorthand for how people perceive climate issues. It was a clash of ideas: rugged individualism versus collective responsibility for the planet. What's even more ironic is that Alaska, the state Palin has always championed, is one of the places most visibly impacted by climate change. Glaciers are shrinking, coastal communities face erosion, and indigenous populations are grappling with the loss of traditional ways of life. These changes aren't just hypothetical, they're happening right now. And for many, the idea of using the Alaskan wilderness as a backdrop while sidestepping the climate conversation felt like a missed opportunity. But before we get carried away, it's worth noting something important. Sarah Palin isn't the only figure to have faced this kind of scrutiny. Public figures often become symbols, whether they want to or not. And sometimes, those symbols take on a life of their own, far removed from the original context. In Palin's case, the photos became bigger than the person. They turned into a cultural artifact, a strange blend of admiration, criticism, and unintended symbolism. So, did Sarah Palin actually cause global warming with those pictures? Of course not. That's a bit of an exaggeration. But what they did cause was a wave of conversations about how we think about climate change, how we frame public figures, and how images can carry meanings far beyond what they were intended for. And maybe, just maybe, they made some people pay a little more attention to the very real changes happening in places like Alaska. As we wrap this up, it's clear that the story of these pictures isn't really about Sarah Palin herself. It's about how we, as a society, connect symbols to larger ideas. Sometimes, a single image can spark debates that go far beyond its original purpose. And whether you see those pictures as inspiring or frustrating, there's no denying the impact they had on the conversation. So what do you think? Can a photo really change the way we see the world? Or is it just another moment in the endless stream of online debates? Let us know. And while you're here, stick around for more stories that make you question, wonder, and rethink what you thought you knew.